I awoke to the sight of Chloe's face hovering above mine, etched with a worry so deep it seemed to pull at the corners of her eyes. Her voice, when it came, was soft but insistent, a low murmur meant to soothe. "Don't be upset," she began, her gaze unwavering. "Your body is yours alone, even divorced. You have every right to live fully." She paused, as if weighing each word. "The children. They wouldn't endure staying with Mason. Either there's no sense dragging this back to court. You wouldn't win. Anyway." A cold numbness spread through me after what felt like an eternity adrift in confusion. I heard my own voice, thin and distant. "Who is Mason?" Chloe's expression went slack, her features freezing mid-thought for several heartbeats. She simply stared, uncomprehending. Then, without another word, she turned and hurried from the room. Returning moments later with a white-coated physician in tow, the doctor's diagnosis was brisk, clinical. Amnesia, a lingering shadow cast by the aftermath of a car accident. Chloe's next question came in a rush, tinged with urgency. "How old do you think you are right now?" I hesitated, sifting through the fog in my mind. 18. I replied slowly. "Didn't I just finish the college entrance exam yesterday?" A burst of laughter escaped her, sharp, almost disbelieving. She sank to her knees, clutching her stomach as mirth shook her whole frame. Her fist struck the edge of the hospital bed in rhythm with her gasps. "You've lost your memory in the most perfect way possible," she managed between breaths. 18. Just imagine no Mason, no children, only you and me. My bewilderment only deepened. Once it became clear that my memories weren't likely to return anytime soon, Chloe brought me to her apartment there. Amid the soft light and familiar clutter of her space, she began to sketch the outlines of my life. Her voice was gentle but deliberate as she explained. "I was Wendy Chun during my freshman year of college. I had met a penniless young man named Mason. We dated for 10 years from age 18 to 28. I supported him through starting his business, went through tough times with him, had kids with him, and even took care of his parents. Then this year, he sued me for divorce. I was shocked. What kind of tragic, over-the-top drama was this?" After a long silence, I asked in a shaky voice, "So, what you're saying is I basically played maid for 10 years and then at 20 got thrown out of the house?" Chloe nodded. "Yep, and you have 2 kids. Your son is 6 and your daughter is 4, but since you were a stay-at-home mom with no income, both kids chose to stay with their dad, so the court granted full custody to Mason. The 2 kids I had raised with so much effort were both gone, even though I hadn't lived through any of this, at least not in my memory." It sounded terrifying. I felt like I was about to cry. Chloe, still trying to comfort me, patted me on the shoulder and said, "At least you've still got money." Tears welled up in my eyes. I asked cautiously how much. Chloe sat up straight. "Wendy, listen carefully. You got 20% of Mason's assets. That includes a 10% share in a public company and 2 courtyard homes in Beijing altogether. It's worth about 19 billion yuan. I sat in silence, thinking it over. Then I hesitantly asked Chloe, "You're not lying to me, right?" "If I'm lying, I'm a dog," she replied. That day I stared out the window in a daze. I had lost 10 years of memories. I had no idea how I had lived through that decade, but Chloe said I was rich and back when I was 18. My favorite thing in the world was money, so I thought this might not be so bad after all. Chloe took time off work over the next few days. She took me around to handle all the asset transfers. I never saw this Mason guy. He left all the property and divorce proceedings to his lawyers. Chloe stayed busy for almost a full month later. She helped me list all my properties for rent. She did the math and said I'd be making about 1-2 million yuan in rent every month. One day I saw my bank balance. So many zeros I couldn't even count them all. I looked up into the mirror and saw a 28-year-old me with perfect makeup. I scratched my head and thought, not bad. I didn't have much to do at home, but Chloe still had to work every day. I just stayed at her place playing video games at lunchtime. She'd ordered delivery and always made Sharito get me something too. She got home late, completely exhausted. When she came back at night, she'd collapse onto the couch like she had nothing left in her. I'd set down the controller and give her a shoulder massage. Apparently, I still had muscle memory. I was really good at it. Once she was rested, Chloe would start ranting about how Mason and his family were trash. Right after you graduated, you started working for him for free. His mom wasn't in good health, and after your own job, you'd come home and give her shoulder rubs and massages. As she talked, she flicked my forehead and said, "Wendy, you really were hopeless the minute I wasn't around. You let them bully you. That whole family picked on you because you were a girl who didn't have anyone else to love her." I rubbed my forehead, feeling a little hurt. "So I don't remember any of that." Chloe paused, then smiled and said, "Exactly. You don't remember. That's a good thing. Just remember me. That's enough. I won't bully you." And I believed her because Chloe and I grew up together. We both grew up in a welfare home from a very young age. I was always trailing behind Chloe. She would snatch snacks for me, help me wash my clothes when we got a little older. She even tutored me in schoolwork. She was a year older than me during my senior year of high school. She was a freshman in college and she called me every single day to encourage me to study hard. She wanted us to get into the same university, but Chloe scored too high. I studied like crazy. But in the end, I just couldn't get into Peking University. The day our exam results came out, I threw myself into Chloe's arms and cried. She gave me a light flick on the forehead. Why are you crying? You got a 666, that's amazing, what's there to cry about? She patted my head and said, you did great already. Later I went to Shanghai in tears. Chloe brought it up once and said she regretted letting me go. If I hadn't let you go to Shanghai, you wouldn't have met Mason. If you hadn't met Mason, I cut her off, then I wouldn't have gotten that 19 billion. Chloe put her hands on her hips. So what's more important? Money. Were those 10 years of your life? I tried to guess the right answer. Money. Chloe gave me that look of total disappointment. Yuri, more if you're not happy. What good is all that money? Thank God you lost your memory. If you hadn't and you got overwhelmed and did something stupid, then what's the point of having any of it? I grinned. Well, at least I could buy myself a really nice tombstone. Chloe burst out laughing. Get out of here. Chloe has always been incredible. She still is. She's now a general manager at a multinational company making about 400,000 yuan a month, but she's always busy. Sometimes she has to travel for work and she worries about leaving me alone, so she started bringing me along. Eventually she figured, if I have to take you everywhere anyway, why spend my own money? So she hired me as her assistant. I was totally ready for this. I read more than a dozen CFLs for his assistant novels in the past few months. On my first day, I confidently showed up in a fitted pencil skirt and a sharp business outfit. I made her coffee, organized her documents, and ran around looking super busy. I probably looked like I was working really hard. She found it hilarious. Stop running around, she said, handing me a spreadsheet. Let Andy help you go through this. Just take your time. There's no rush, okay? Okay. And just like that, I officially started working every day. I went to and from work with Chloe. I didn't have much to do, so I usually got off early. Chloe, on the other hand, was constantly swamped. I always waited for her during breaks. One time she saw me scrolling on my phone and suddenly asked, seriously, Wendy, do you want to study? I thought about it. I had amnesia. I didn't know how to do most things at work. I was starting from zero. Every time I messed up, I felt pretty defeated. When I was little, Chloe was my role model. She still is. I wanted to be like her, capable and calm no matter the situation. So cool. Later, Chloe signed me up for a class after work every day. I drive to attend it. It was a structured course on project management with some practical office software training mixed, and I filled 2 notebooks with notes, and eventually things started to click. Oh, so that's how it works. After I finished that course, Chloe enrolled me in a financial accounting class. I studied for a whole year and finally had a breakthrough. So that's what this is all about. Work started to feel easier, more natural after a year on the job. Chloe had me start sitting in on project negotiations with Andy. He was 3 years younger than me. A project manager, get a great personality, super gentle, always spoke kindly, and really looked out for me. One time after a meeting, he went downstairs to grab himself a coffee and came back with an ice cream. I happily bit into it, and Andy laughed. Mandy says you're 29, he said, but I never believe it, Wendy. You're like a kid, one of those sweet, hard-working, well-behaved kids. I thought for a moment, and then told him, seriously, actually I already have 2 kids. Stop messing with me. Been working together for over a year, and I've never even seen your husband. You're divorced now, and seriously, you look like a teenage girl. Well, I replied, I'm technically a young divorcee. Andy was stunned. He didn't believe. May laughed because honestly I didn't believe it either. I just finished my college entrance exams. How could I be 29 already? But I had been taking good care of myself these past 2 years, and I really did look younger now right after the divorce. Though I wasn't doing well. I was in pretty bad shape, but maybe it's true what they money heals. After I was discharged from the hospital, Chloe made sure I had a full skincare routine. She said I was too weak and even signed me up for a combat training class. 18-year-old me had always looked up to Chloe. If she said go east, I would never dare go west. If she said take up combat sports, I wouldn't even think of suggesting taekwondo. We hired a nanny at home to cook balanced, nutritious meals for me, and little by little I got better with no memory. I had no worries. I had money, didn't have to work, and could eat and sleep well. Even my hair got noticeably thicker over those few months. Honestly, this past year has been pretty happy for me. Forgot that messy decade of memories with the mindset of an 18-year-old. I had a fresh start, no stress, just learning new things, and Chloe was always there behind me, supporting me, guiding me. But maybe the universe couldn't stand to see meso content. One day, Andy brought me along to a business negotiation, but because it was a confidential meeting, I couldn't go inside. He left me downstairs in a cafe with an ice cream and a book. He was reading when I suddenly felt someone staring at me. Looked up, and saw a man in a well-tailored suit, his brows furrowed as he stared directly at May. Froze. He looked kind of familiar, but I couldn't figure out who he was. When Andy came down after the meeting, I picked up the coffee I'd bought ahead of Tomito. Give to him. As I passed by that man, I heard him say, "So you're pretending not to know me?" His tone was laced with sarcasm. I glanced at him but didn't think much of it and kept walking, holding the coffee, but the man followed me out. Wendy Chun, you're not even gonna say hello when we meet? I turned around and he turned too when Andy saw the man. He smiled politely. Mr. Pai, long time no see. Mason Pai didn't respond to Andy. He just kept staring at me. I looked at the man. Mr. Pai, could this be Mason? I whispered to Andy, is that Mason Pai? Yeah, Andy nodded. CEO of the Pai Group, you know him? I think he's my ex-husband. Andy was stunned, looking back and forth between me and Mason. Mason was still staring at me. After a second, I held out my hand. Nice to meet you. Mason didn't take my hand. He looked at me, his gaze filled with contempt and scrutiny. Wendy Chun, I really overestimated you. I thought you were a good mother. In court you fought so hard for custody of Zoe and Evan. But after you got your money, you haven't even looked at them once. Good thing the kids didn't end up with you. Someone like you doesn't deserve to be a mama. Strange wave of sadness rose in my chest, but as the feeling faded, I realized that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't remember what Zoe and Evan even looked like. Mason's eyes narrowed. Wendy Chun, you better come home this weekend, otherwise I can forget about ever seeing Zoe and Evan again. And then he left Andy, and I just stood there. He looked completely confused, and I was lost in thought. That night when we got home, I finally heard something about my kids from Chloe for the first time. They're both really smart, she said, but back when Mason was starting his company, you were busy, too. Right after giving birth, you went straight back to work. The kids were raised by their grandparents. They never really formed a bond with you. Chloe sighed. You could have gotten 50% of the marital assets in the divorce, but you signed an agreement with Mason. You only took 20% of the assets, Chloe said. But Mason made you sign a clause promising never to remarry and guaranteeing that everything you owned would go to the kids. She paused before continuing. You carried those 2 children in your body for 10 months. The pain was unbearable, I know. But it didn't matter. Both of them don't like you. Chloe sighed again. That day when I came to pick you up, I saw them yelling at you, saying you didn't do anything and just took 20% of Mason's assets, that you should give it all back. You stood there silently. They were so furious they threw a glass cup at you. She didn't finish the sentence, just let out a heavy breath and pulled me into a hug. Wendy, please don't try to remember, okay? Let's just stay happy like this. Isn't it nice? I nodded seriously. Okay. I don't want to remember either. If you feel like seeing them this weekend, then go. You can't avoid it forever. I'll come with you. No one will dare to mess with you. I looked up at Chloe and nodded again. Honestly, it wouldn't matter to me if I didn't see them. I had truly forgotten. I just felt a brief sadness when the topic came up. But now I didn't feel much of anything, maybe just a bit of curiosity. What did they even look like that weekend? Chloe went with me. When Mason opened the door and saw her, his face immediately soured. He clearly didn't like Chloe, and of course the feeling was mutual. Mason let me in but tried to block Chloe at the door. I panicked and ran back out, sticking close behind Chloe. I was honestly a little scared of Mason. He was so tall, and his presence was overwhelming. Most importantly, I didn't remember him at all. I clung to Chloe. If she didn't go in, I wasn't going in either. Mason's face darkened instantly. Wendy Chun, if you want to see the kids today, you'll have to come in alone. Then forget it, I said, shaking my head furiously like a bobblehead. I was scared to death. What the hell kind of person says that? I tugged at Chloe, wanting to leave. Mason laughed in disbelief. Wendy Chun, what's that supposed to mean? Am I that terrifying? Of course you are, I said with full conviction. You're nearly 6'3", big and strong. You could probably punch me into the wall and leave me stuck there. I'm only going in if Chloe goes with me. Mason's expression turned cold while Chloe just stared back at him stone-faced. Finally, Mason stepped aside and led us in. The living room of the villa was large. In the middle of the room sat a boy around 7 or 8 years old. He looked just like Mason. When our eyes met, his expression didn't look too friendly. That had to be Evan. Next to him sat a little girl, probably Zoe. She looked at me with wide eyes. Surprised, are you, Mom? She asked. I nodded, so he tugged on her brother's sleeve. Evan, Mom is so pretty now, he immediately shouted. Shut up, don't call her Mom. She's not our mom anymore. She doesn't care about you or me, so what kind of mom is she? And she won't let Dad get remarried or let us have a new mom. She's a bad person. She's insane. Whatever hope or expectation I had instantly vanished, but surprisingly, I wasn't that upset. I still couldn't remember them. They looked a bit familiar, but I had clearly forgotten them completely. It just felt like 2 vaguely familiar kids yelling at me. I didn't even feel angry, just a little bored. I stayed at Mason's house for half a day. Evan ignored me and Zoe didn't dare talk to me honestly. What stuck with me the most was how good the food was at Mason's place. Their housekeeper was also pretty young, probably in her 20s. She was beautiful, organized, and really pleasant to look at. Her cooking was great, too. At first, I was even thinking, this housekeeper is amazing, can I poach her? Somehow. That was until she swayed her hips while playfully asking Mason if he wanted strawberries. Chloe, already fuming, leaned down and muttered to me through gritted teeth, "What the hell is she doing?" "That's Mason's mistress. Her name's Lillian. She was your junior in college. What kind of person gets into such a good school and ends up being a homewrecker for that guy?" "She's insane." Chloe's insults got pretty harsh. I rubbed my nose awkwardly. I felt a little guilty, honestly. I wasn't very ambitious back then. Either I was pretty wrapped up in love, but realizing that I couldn't poach the housekeeper, I was heartbroken and then promptly helped myself to another bowl of rice. Chloe was in the middle of eating when she suddenly got a work call. She glanced at me and muttered, "It's urgent." I could tell it was something serious, so I quickly reassured her, "I'm fine, I'll head back myself in a bit, you go ahead." "Wendy, I'll be back in 40 minutes, just 40, I'll come pick you up." Chloe rushed out in a hurry. After dinner, Mason glanced over at Lillian. She gave him a pitiful look, then quietly took the kids upstairs. That left just Mason and me alone in the living room. I checked the time. Chloe would probably be back in 15 minutes or so. I started thinking, if Mason tried to hit me, what's the quickest way I could get out the door? Would that combat class I took help? Probably not much. I'm only 5'7" and a bit on the thin side. Too small to put up a real fight. Then Mason reached his hand toward me, bolted like a startled duck. I didn't make it to the front door in time, so I dashed into the nearest room and locked the door behind me. Inside, I heard the sound of Mason trying keys that made me panic even more. "Don't come in," I shouted. "If you come in, I'm calling the police." Through the door, I could hear his angry voice. "Wendy Chun, what are you so afraid of? We were together for 10 years. We were married. Are you seriously scared? I'll hit you." I lost it. Screaming hysterically, I yelled, "Why do you care what I'm scared of? Just stay away from me." "Get lost." The voice on the other side of the door suddenly softened. "Wendy, what happened to you? Why are you like this now? Did someone hurt you?" "Go away," I shouted, "and don't come near this room until Chloe gets back." There was a long sigh outside the door. "How can you be so heartless, Wendy Chun? It's been a year. You haven't come to see them, even once. If you just asked me to get back together, ish it up," I shouted, pressing my hands over my ears. "Stop talking. Stay away from me." There was a pause. Then I heard his footsteps slowly fade away. I leaned against the door, gripping a pair of scissors tightly in my hand, finally letting out a breath of relief. Chloe had told me a lot about what happened between Mason and me. From her words, I was deeply in love with him when he cheated. I still didn't want to divorce him. I just kept screaming and fighting with him like I'd lost my mind. Eventually, Mason got tired of me and forced me into a divorce. I even tried to end my life to stop him, but it didn't work. Mason filed for divorce anyway and hired the best lawyer in the country. According to Chloe, I had loved him with everything. I had loved him so much that I forgot myself. But ever since I lost my memory, every time I saw Mason, I didn't feel sadness, just fear. He was tall, aggressive, and always spoke harshly. I couldn't understand how I'd ever fallen for someone like that. I was a child abandoned at a welfare home. I'd always lived carefully, cautiously. Even the smallest wound could crush me. I'd gone my whole life having only one friend, Chloe. So how did I find the courage to give everything to someone like Mason? I didn't understand what had happened before, but right now, I was truly afraid. After visiting Mason's house, I had nightmares for several days. In all of them, Mason was chasing Mel at her. Chloe asked if I wanted to visit again. I immediately shook my head. No, absolutely not. He looks like the Grim Reaper. Just thinking about him scares me. Chloe burst out laughing. She laughed so hard she had tears in her eyes. "Oh, Wendy," she said, wiping her eyes, "my poor baby. I promise no one will hurt you again from now on. I wouldn't be mistreated anymore. Things would only get better. Of course they would. I'm someone with $19 billion in assets now." Chloe must have noticed that Mason had affected May hadn't been in a good state lately, so she thought it over and started assigning me more work. I began working overtime too. One night, I worked until well past midnight. When I finally finished, I leaned back in my chair completely drained, feeling like I didn't want to live anymore. I wasn't dreaming about Mason anymore, but I had started dreaming about work. I worked during the day and at night I dreamed of working too. Everything was just work. Eventually, I went to see Chloe. She smiled teasingly. "Everyone else can finish their tasks. If you can't, maybe you're not trying hard enough." I grabbed her collar and shook her. "Go to hell, damn capitalism." Okay, she laughed. "Are we about to have a break? It's a 9-day holiday. I'll take you on a trip." It was National Day. We went to the beach. Chloe worried I'd wander off. Even bought me a smartwatch with GPS tracking. I've always loved the beach. Ever since I was 18, I dreamed of wearing a cute bikini and playing in the water. But when we got there, I didn't feel happy at all. I had a scar on my stomach. It looked ugly, and I felt really self-conscious. I turned to Chloe and mumbled, "It's so ugly. Why did I do that to myself back then? I went through all that pain to give birth, and in return, I got nothing but cruel words." Chloe leaned down and gently patted my head. "Don't think like that. You were young. You were brave enough to love the world. They betrayed you. But that's not your fault." I thought Chloe was right. I still wanted to wear that bikini, the one that showed my waist, so I just used some foundation to cover the scar. It didn't completely hide it, but I didn't care anymore. We had booked a private beach. It cost money, but it meant there weren't many people around that day. I was so excited. I ran into the water with Chloe and played for ages. I even found this huge, beautiful stone by the shore. When I turned around, I noticed Chloe's expression had changed following her gaze. I saw Mason. He was staring at me, expression sharp. "Wendy Chun," he said, "I actually thought you'd changed, but here you are using the same trick again after a year to disgusting." My little brother cursed under his breath. Chloe burst out laughing. "Let's go." I followed Chloe out of the water, not even wanting to spare Mason a single glance, but then he stepped closer, towering over me. Don't know what got into me that day. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry, furious. Why? Why was I betrayed by someone like him? I looked up and smiled at him. "What are you doing here?" Mason looked at me and replied, under his breath, "You forgot I own this beach." There weren't many people around. Chloe instinctively tried to lead me away, but I slipped free from her grip. I hooked my finger and Mason leaned down, placing his hand on my waist. His eyes scanned my body. Lingering, I kept smiling at him. He moved in closer and closer. Just when he got the closest, I slammed the stone into his head. He didn't even have time to react. He lost his balance, and I kicked him right between the legs. He dropped to a crouch. I raised the stone and brought it down again, and again I hit him hard, all my blows aimed straight for his head. He didn't have the strength to fight back. Then I started pounding it into his body again. And again it was Chloe who finally rushed over and held me back. "Wendy, stop, you'll kill him." Tears suddenly fell from my eyes. I turned to Chloe. I remember how I met him. I had first met Mason because I was being bullied. He saved me back then. He was only 19, like a hero from the sky. He stood in front of me, shielding me, and smashed a brick into the bully's head. After that, I chased him. I confessed first in the winter. I gave him flowers and eventually he said yes back. Then he told me if someone bullies you, just grab a brick and hit them. The autumn wind rustled through the trees on campus. Leaves were fluttering everywhere. I looked back and asked him, "So if someone bullies me, I just hit them with a brick?" "Of course," he said, "whoever bullies you, you hit them. Then what if one day you bully me? Then you should beat me to death. Even if you do, I won't blame you. Wendy, I love you." The Mason from back then and the one in front of me now overlapped in my mind. Mason, his head covered in blood, looked at me and suddenly let out a low laugh. "Wendy, so the reason you were afraid of me before was because you forgot I knew it. How could you be scared of me? You loved me so much. Wendy, now that you've let it all out, can you come home with me? If you don't like them, I'll send them away. No one who doesn't love you will stay. Just pretend everything was my fault. Let's get back together, okay?" Chloe froze when she heard that. Her voice trembled. "Wendy," but I just laughed and looked down at Mason laying on the sand. He raised the stone and slammed it down on his head again. "Screw you, Mason, why don't you just go die already?" Mason chuckled. "Wendy, see, you still hate me. That means you still love me. Screw your love," I sneered. "A decent ex-husband should stay dead. Never show up in front of me again. Don't go." "Wendy," he called after me, "I like the way you are now. You read just like you were in college. Beautiful, brave, and innocent." The first raised the stone and hit him one more time. "Men who want to romanticize their ex-wife should just drop dead and reincarnate in the next life." She stood up, brushed the sand off my legs, and walked away with Chloe. She looked a bit worried. "Wendy, you don't think he'll call the police, do you? Who cares? Worst case, I do 2 years in prison and come out. It's not like I'm trying to be a civil servant. What am I afraid of?" Chloe choked a little at that, sighed and looked at me. "Wendy, how much of your memory has come back?" 23. I remember college now. At 18, Wendy Chun was timid about everything, but at 23, I was brave because that year Mason's business failed. He lost money and debt collectors started showing up at our door. They came every day nonstop. Eventually, when they got aggressive, they started threatening us physically to protect the children inside. I held a taser in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other. The reckless fear. The cautious and the cautious fear the ones with nothing to lose. I was the one with nothing to lose. I was a mother no one could touch my kids unless they killed me first. Eventually, those thugs backed off. They were too scared to get near me again. I guess 23 was the bravest I've ever been. I was young, fearless, not even afraid to die. After the holiday, I went back with Chloe. She had worried I might want to return to Mason now that I'd regained my memory. I stayed right at my job, working diligently every day. She watched me for a few months and finally relaxed, and once she was sure I wasn't going anywhere, she started shamelessly overworking me again. One night I worked overtime until 2 in the morning. I looked at her with dead eyes. Aren't we childhood friends? You're treating me like a beast of burden. She patted my shoulder and said, you're part of the design department now. Why would I treat you like a human? At this point, I felt like a ghost in the 18th level of hell, wandering around the office with no will to live. But that wasn't even the most frustrating part of my life. The worst part was Mason showing up every few days to block me at work. Sometimes he even brought the kids. When I saw Evan again, I was a bit surprised. I walked up to him. You've really grown. Evan frowned and turned his head away in irritation. But I didn't mind. I looked at him and said softly, back then when I held you in my arms, you were just this small crying non-stop day and night. Sometimes I'd, why are you so difficult? I must have owed you something in my past life, but even then, I loved you so much, I just couldn't let you go. Finally, Evan was willing to glance at me, reached out and patted his head. You're in school now, right? You're a big kid now. Seeing you grow up well makes me feel at ease. He looked at me, then suddenly got angry and jerked his hand away. Wendy Chun, don't think that just because you say this, Dad and I will forgive you after that. He turned and ran into the car. Hiding from May froze next to me. Zoe tugged at my sleeve. Mom. I pinched her little cheek. Zoe, Mommy loves you, too. She blinked in surprise, her eyes suddenly filling with tears. The tears spilled over. Mama, Mommy, all the other kids at preschool have mommies. Mommy, can you come back, please? I knelt down and hugged her. Baby, Mommy loves you. You can come find me anytime, but Mommy has chosen a new path in life. I'm sorry, but I can't go back. Mason stood silently nearby. His head was still wrapped in a bandage. The cuts on his face were minor, just a few bruises and lumps from my hits. I stared at him without expression. He actually had the nerve to smile. So clearly he wasn't that badly hurt. He reached out, trying to take my hand. He dodged him. His fingers froze in the air. He looked at me and smiled with a hoarse voice. Wendy, if you've forgotten everything, then forget it. Let's just forget the past. Can't we start over? I snapped instantly. Get lost. Mason, how dare you talk about betrayal when things were at their worst? I was the one who carried it all for you. I was the one who held everything together. He stood on the rooftop and asked me if dying would make everything better. Back then, I shouldn't have stopped you. Why didn't you just die? I seriously regret it. He froze for a long moment, then said weakly, Wendy, don't talk like that. You lost your memory. You don't know what happened after. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't want things to end up like this. Oh, really? Then what happened after? Was I the one who cheated, or did you find out the kids weren't yours? No, Wendy, that's not it. Then it was you who gave up. You let yourself fall apart. That must have hit a nerve, because his tone suddenly turned harsh. Wendy Chun, what do you know about what I went through? You forgot to turn off the gas. It was your fault, and now you act so self-righteous. How is it fair for you to forget everything? I laughed bitterly. So it's my fault. Fine, it's my fault. The divorce you forced it. All of this, you did it since you wanted to cut ties with me. Why come back now? What gives you the right? Oh, forget everything and start fresh. Wendy Chun, what gives you the right? He looked furious, but I just smiled. What gives me the right? Luck and my own. Damn, will screw you. Mason, who are you to bully me? I went back to work. But one day I just couldn't take it anymore. I stormed into Chloe's office and forced her to leave early with me. She looked at me, dark circles under my eyes, and burst out laughing. She patted my shoulder. Wendy, you're amazing. She actually sounded sincere. It suddenly reminded me of how she used to praise Muhen we were kids. I grinned my head down for a long time before throwing my arms around her. Big sis, I'm begging you, please let me get off work early. I can't do this anymore. Stop treating me like some pack mule. I've had enough coffee to last me a lifetime. Please. No more motivational talk. She sighed and patted my shoulder. The project's not over. We still have work to do. I clenched my teeth in frustration. And then Chloe, the slave driver, made me work for another whole month. But finally, the biggest project of the year was submitted and passed final inspection. It was over. Year end was approaching, and Chloe and I both eased up. We started coming in at 10 a.m. and leaving at 5 p.m. living lazy, comfortable. After work, we'd go grocery shopping and cook. We used to have a housekeeper who did all the cooking. But now that we had time, we started doing it ourselves. Cooking alone is a chore, but cooking with someone else, it's actually kind of relaxing. There was no rush for anything. After making dinner, we'd eat at a little table out on the balcony, then follow it with a couple glasses of sparkling water mixed with sake. That kind of life now that was comfortable. The office was really close to home. When we had more free time, sometimes we didn't even bother driving, just walk back together. But one day as I was coming downstairs from work, I ran into a completely drunk Mason. How much sorrow can one man carry in a lifetime? Drunk Mason looked like a pig's head. I didn't bother with him. Chloe called Lillian. She arrived quickly and greeted me with a smile. Hi, Wendy, long time no see. When you have time, you should come over for dinner again. Evan's been asking about you a lot lately. I laughed. Lillian, that's not how Mistress is supposed to behave if you're going to climb into someone else's bed like a mangy mutt. You better know how to keep your tail tucked, always barking won't live long. Her expression instantly turned venomous. You're still just as vicious. Wendy, but what good is your vicious tongue? What good is going crazy? No matter how hard you try, you still couldn't keep his heart. Lil Lion, I just called you a dog. What does that say about him? You think I'd even let him carry my shoes? Him lying in front of the office door, just dirty ground. Take your mutt husband and get the hell out of my sight. One word from you disgusts me for 800 years. If I look at you again, I'll grow a sty. I went to work and came home as usual. I didn't see much of Mason after that. But Zoe started calling me more often. Sometimes she told me little things from preschool. Sometimes she talked about Mason around the new year. Zoe called me again in her soft, childish voice through the phone. She asked, Mommy, are you coming back for New Year? I sighed. I'm sorry, baby, but you can come celebrate New Year with me. Mommy, Aunt Lillian got kicked out. There's no mistress at our house anymore. Can you come back now? I was silent for a long time. Then I said softly through the phone, I'm sorry, baby. I'm really sorry you had to go through all of this, but Mommy didn't leave just because of Aunt Lillian. There were a lot of problems. Mommy really can't go back anymore, baby. Do you miss me? Come stay with me for a few days. But Mommy, if I leave, Daddy, he'll be sad when you left. Daddy, he was already really sad. The words I wanted to say got stuck in my throat. I couldn't say them. I'm sorry, Zoe, it's okay. Mommy, Daddy said you love us the most. You just forgot me for now. When you remember, you'll definitely come back. Mommy, I love you and I love Daddy too. After the call ended, I sat inside staring at the ceiling. A long time passed before I sighed and pressed my fingers against my aching temples. At the end of the year, Chloe and I went shopping for New Year's goods. While Chloe went to pick something up, I checked my phone. Then suddenly I heard Zoe's voice call out, Mommy. Instinctively, I looked up and scanned my surroundings, but I didn't see anyone just then. Mason called me. Wendy, is Zoe with you? What do you mean? She's been saying 4 days that she wanted to spend New Year with you, and now she suddenly disappeared. Mason, what the hell are you doing? Where's your nanny, your housekeeper? What happened to the security cameras? They're reviewing it. Now don't panic. She went out alone, headed in the direction of your place. I've taken her there before so she remembers. I forced myself to stay calm. I'm going home right now. You need to file a police report and check the traffic cameras immediately. Just as the call ended, I heard another clear, childish voice. Mommy. I snapped my head up. Yes, it was Zoe's voice. Following the sound, I spotted a small figure standing near a side gate behind the supermarket. I immediately ran over and pushed the door open, but what I saw wasn't Zoe. It was a life-sized doll. Next to the doll sat a small voice recorder playing the word Mommy on a loop. Something immediately felt wrong. Before I could react, a sharp pain struck my head, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in an abandoned building. I looked down at the ropes binding me, then looked toward the figure in the distance. It was Lillian. She was sitting there propping her chin on her hand, staring blankly out the window. Lillian, you kidnapped me, I said. She snapped out of her daze and turned to look at me. Her eyes flickered, first with confusion, then settling into calm. Wendy, she said, why is it always Annie who doesn't get to be happy? What do you mean, Wendy? Mason was with me, too. He clearly made an effort with me. I know he did. So why? Why couldn't he love me just a little more? She continued. Back then my parents didn't want me to go. It was Mason who crossed the mountain roads, gave my parents money, and brought me back. I loved him. I stayed silent. After a long sigh, I finally looked at her and said, Lillian, I grew up in an orphanage. You came from the mountains. You know what it's like. Just making it to adulthood took everything we had. I wanted someone to protect me. Too, I wanted a home. The road ahead was long, and it's scary to face it alone. Back then, we were young. I understand why you liked him. I liked him too, but I'm turning 30 soon, and you must be almost 28, right? Life expectancy is around 70. We're nearly halfway through life, so why would you throw everything away over a man? I already made that mistake once. I said I lost 10 years of my life. I accept that. I'll take the loss. I misjudged someone, but I've become a cautionary tale. So why would you, someone who's not a fool, make the same mistake? Do you really think you can rely on a man for the rest of your life? Lillian stared for a long time before finally responding. Weary, not the same. Wendy, I have nothing. If I can't rely on him, then what were these past 10 years for? Then I guess I said softly, you're just unlucky, too. She froze, stunned. Then she laughed. When she turned around, she looked just like the girl I met the first time years ago, eyes sparkling with light. Wendy, she said, I used to have dreams too. Like what? I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to go to space. I wanted to see the world beyond this world. I didn't want to live among people. I hated this world that always bullied me. What was your dream back then, Wendy? I paused. I had to think hard, really hard, and then finally I remembered and smiled. You know Chloe, right? I said she was amazing even when we were little when I was in senior year. I made a wish that I'd grow up and just follow Chloe around doing nothing, not such a small dream. She said our teachers used to say we should have grand ambitions, that if we worked hard enough, we could change the world. Doing nothing is fine, too. I replied, at least it means we're living freely, doing our best to survive. Unlike now when we can't even protect ourselves. Lillian didn't speak for a long time. The sun began to set. I was lost in the golden light glowing on the horizon. Only when the sun had fully disappeared did she finally turn back and say, "Wendy, it's been a long time since you talked to me like this, calmly, like before, back when we were still friends who told each other everything." I didn't say anything, just kept staring out at the fading light. Night fell, the city lit up in the distance. The wind was strong, it blew Lillian's hair into a mess, and then I heard Mason call her on the phone. She answered, but then without a word tossed the phone off the rooftop. It fell in silence, vanishing quickly into the night. Then she walked slowly back to me and sat down at my side. "Wendy," she said, "I've never cared that much about money. I just wanted someone to hold me. I've been alone since I was a kid. 1 year, 10 years, just watching as other kids were picked up by their parents, watching as they were held like precious treasures in warm embraces. Back then, I used to wonder, what's the point of living? But I didn't agree with that. I thought, and dying would make it meaningful." Lillian laughed. "But Wendy, living is just so exhausting. Do you remember college?" she asked. "They used to say I had bugs on me. They threw my blanket into the toilet. I was so scared I borrowed someone's phone to call Mason for help. And he called you instead. You rushed over in such a panic. You brought me back to your dorm room and held me while I leapt." "Wendy," she said softly, "I'll untie you. Just don't leave yet. Lie down and hold me until I fall asleep, okay?" I didn't respond. I stayed quiet. Lillian waited a while, but I still said nothing. Eventually, she loosened the ropes. Not long after she fell asleep, leaning lightly against me, tried to set her down and get up, planning to quietly leave, but just as I reached the stairwell, I looked back. She was curled up on the cold floor, her face pale but peaceful, and in that moment, something hit me. Froze. A minute later, I snapped out of it and rushed back inside like a mad woman. "Lillian, did you take something?" "Lillian?" That day, I carried her on my back as I ran down all 6 floors. I had no idea how she'd even drag me up there in the first place, but getting her down nearly made me collapse. I didn't dare stop. I kept running through the nearby streets, desperately searching for help. When the beam of a police flashlight finally found us, I could barely stand. I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Call 911. She took something. Please help her." Lillian was taken away on a stretcher, stood there panting, drained. A police officer helped support me as we walked forward. It wasn't until much later that I looked up and saw 2 people running toward me. Chloe on the left, Mason on the right. Chloe said nothing. Mason pleaded, "Wendy, Zoe, scared. She's been crying to see you. Will you come home with us?" I stared at Mason for a very, very long time. Honestly, it had been years since I had really looked at him like that. Feeling I had the first time we met, the spark was long gone, worn down by time. I exhaled a long, shaky breath, and for the first time I explained everything to him. "Mason, that day of the gas explosion, you asked me where I went. Well, I can finally tell you now. I was sent to the hospital for low blood sugar. I was unconscious for a day, and a night I didn't turn on the gas. I couldn't make it back in time because I was lying there in the hospital. That wasn't my fault. You were working late that night and didn't come home either, but somehow it all ended up being my fault. Our marriage was a mess, but the one thing that was real, the one thing I can't forget, is that you betrayed me after Zoe was born. Your mom developed Alzheimer's. I had no choice but to become a stay-at-home mom. We didn't have much back then. No money to hire help. You were always busy, so it was just me taking care of your parents, our son and our newborn daughter. That morning, I went out to buy groceries and left Evan with his grandparents. He was 4 years old, at that curious age where kids touch everything. He turned on the gas without anyone noticing. The gas leaked that evening when someone started cooking. It exploded. Your dad died instantly. Your mom was holding Evan and happened to be far enough away when the explosion hit. Her instinct was to shield him with her body. Evan was completely unharmed, but your mom had 3rd-degree burns on a 6% of her body. Her skin got infected. She didn't survive the month. I never even made it home that night. I didn't get back until the next day. You blamed me. You said I ran off and didn't watch the kids. I said nothing because if someone had to take responsibility, I figured maybe it should be me. Evan was so little back then, and just like that, he lost both of his grandparents. I would rather Evan hate me completely than carry guilt over what happened after that. Mason kept asking me where I'd gone that day. "Why didn't I come home?" he said. "If you had found the leak earlier, nothing would have happened." I didn't answer. I was too tired. I didn't want to explain myself anymore. Then Mason and I began a long, cold war. Much later, I found out he had cheated. I didn't even react at the time. I thought maybe that's just what marriage turns into. I was so exhausted I didn't have the energy to deal with him if we just kept up the appearance of peace. That was enough, but even that, he couldn't maintain eventually. He said he wanted a divorce. I refused. Evan and Zoe were still so young at that point. I was on the brink of depression. Cornered by life, I couldn't understand how things had gotten this way. No one understood me. Evan resented me. Mason resented me. He pushed and pushed. He wouldn't listen to anything I said. I could only scream and throw things like a caged bird losing its mind, desperately trying to break out, but all I got in return were mocking stares from bystanders until Mason finally said he'd go to court for the divorce. At first, I still wanted to explain, but he didn't want to hear it anymore. He just wanted out. He didn't even want to look at me, and now it's all over. That day, why didn't I come home? Because after days of exhaustion, my blood sugar crashed. I passed out with Zoe in my arms at the entrance of a supermarket. I spent an entire day and night unconscious in a hospital. Mason, you think I hate you, don't you? I looked at him and shook my head like I used to, but now with everything clear again, I found I didn't even care enough to hate. Those 10 years were like a dream now that I've woken up. I realize my future is still long. I don't need to care about you anymore. I don't want to waste another minute on you. I turned and walked toward Chloe. She took my hand, and I suddenly felt overwhelmed. I haven't eaten all day. I'm starving. Okay. She said, let's go home. I didn't look back. I didn't care what Mason thought of the truth anymore. All I knew was it was getting late. It was time to go home and sleep. The road ahead is long. There's no need to look back. The past should scatter with the wind. The end. Epilogue. Many years later, I still remember that night. That night I had lost all hope. On the way home, I got into a car accident. My body was crushed. I couldn't move, and eventually I gave up trying, but Chloe came. The car was already on fire. I don't know where Chloe found the strength, but she bent the bumper. She crawled in through the trunk and dragged me out. She held me. I could feel her body trembling, and in that moment, I cried, Chloe, don't be scared. It's okay. I'm here. We're going to the hospital. We're going to be okay. She carried me through the crowd behind us. The car exploded. If she had been a minute late, I would have died in that fire. And then years later, she fought a divorce lawsuit with me. Later. Epilogue. I went to see Lillian. I tried explaining things to the police. Will her sentence be heavy? Does this count as turning herself in? Could they be lenient with her? Lillian interrupted. No. I did kidnap her. I did it on purpose. I planned it. I even tricked Zoe. My crime is serious. I should be punished to the full extent. Police looked at us with complicated expressions. It was the first time they'd ever seen a victim pleading for leniency and the perpetrator refusing it. They told me to go home and think it over. Only come back to sign the forgiveness papers if I was really sure. Lillian was sentenced to 5 years later. I visited her. She smiled at me. Wendy, thank you. I'm actually doing okay. I've always wanted to leave the crowd. People grouped together to talk about money, power, and the future. Every word they say pressures me. Get anxious. I reflect. I panic. I'm scared. I used to be terrified. I never fit. I lived every day in fear. But my original dream was to leave Earth to build my own utopia in space. Goodbye. Wendy, I'm tired. I'm going to rest now. When I wake up one day, I'll come find you and we'll talk again. Every few months, I'd remember to send Lillian something. In March of the following year, she wrote me a letter. The handwriting was neat and delicate. She told me she'd been learning lots of new things, embroidery, paper cutting, and more. She said she was still studying hard, and once she improved, she'd send me something she made. At the end of the letter, she confessed, that day I was planning to take you with me, but when I stood on the rooftop, I changed my mind. Why should I kill you? To make Mason sad. Mason cheated on me. What right did I have to believe I was his true love? It's laughable. I should have just taken Mason up there instead. That would have made him regret it. And Wendy, when you called me a dog, it didn't even hurt. I've been hearing filthier things since I was